And welcome to another teacher talk session tonight we are going to have our 125th session, and we are having a different educator from different part of the world as usual. And tonight we have a teacher trainer and educational consultant, Ron Morrain. And I think he is American, but right now he's living in Germany. And I'm gonna invite him, and when he comes we are going to start our live session with him. Let me invite him. For the session. When he comes we are going to start. Still waiting for him to join. Just a moment. I have invited him and I'm waiting. Just a moment. Let me write to him from here. Ha! There he is. Yes. There he is. Hello?
Hello, Volkan. How are you?
I'm fine. It's wonderful to see you. Just a moment. I'm trying to arrange my headphone. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Just a moment. Sometimes it happens like this. Okay. I think now it's better. Can you
I can
hear me now?
see you and hear you.
Just a moment. Why it's happening like this? On my headphone. I'm trying to hear it from there. No. Can you?
I can hear you.
No. Wonderful. All right. Okay. Ron, it's great to see you here. And before starting our live session, I would like to say thank you very much for accepting my invitation for Teacher Talks. It's really great honor to have you here
Thank you
tonight.
for inviting me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I know that we are all busy, and I know that you are also very busy. So if you are ready, we can start.
Sure.
Okay. I know about you, but maybe our followers would like to know about you. So can you tell us about yourself a little bit and a little bit about your experience too?
Well, I'm an American, but I live in Germany. I've lived in Europe most of my adult life. I am an American, yeah. And I speak 3 different languages fluently. Of course, English, and Spanish and German. Because I live in Germany, I speak German every day. German is the language of communication for me. I'm a professor at several universities here in Germany, as well as working in many other universities across the world. I do a lot of online learning, online teaching, and I have a company in the Netherlands called Syntax Solutions, and we are educational consultants helping mid-sized to large companies develop learning programs. And we also consult universities as well, too.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank
And
you
I've
very
been
much. Thank you very much, Roy.
teaching for about 35 years.
Wow. It's a great experience. Great experience. So, by the way, there is a really nice comment, if you can see it, and he is an educational rock star. Yes, there is a comment about you. Yes, thank you very much, Sibel Hocam. And all right, so thank you. Let's move to the next question. What was or were your turning point or points in your own education?
Well, I've had a long career. I actually, studied education, but didn't actually start teaching until, later on in my life, because I moved into the corporate world, where I did adult learning,
Hmm.
and worked for a very large company in London, out of New York, and I worked in the personnel department, human resource management, human resource development. So got to see learning and education from the corporate world, and I think that was the theory that I learned in education was
Hmm.
a really good basis for me to start. But I had to do a lot of learning in order to really do my job well. And that job took me all over the world. I was able to work in New York, San Francisco, Hong Kong, Buenos Aires,
Wow.
Geneva, Switzerland, and London, of course. And that was great. So by the time I was 28, I had traveled a
Cool.
lot, and I
Wow. Really
learned
impressive.
a lot about adult education. So that was one of the milestones in my education, but that was pretty early in my career.
Hmm.
And then I decided to take a job in Germany for 2 years as a consultant, and wound up staying here. And I've been in Germany now since 1990.
Wow. Wonderful. Great. Really. You have a huge experience. It's really wonderful, I'm sure. Okay. So let's move to another question. And would you like to add anything else?
In the time that I've been here, I've held a lot of different jobs. I've pretty much held many jobs already in the academic world. And I did my PhD here in Germany. And uh, of course, that led to me coming into the world of academia, which I had never planned. That was not a plan. It was just something that happened that way. And soon after, I opened up my first business here in Germany. Uh, and that led to me opening up 5 different schools. I was also the owner of schools throughout Europe. I had 2 schools in
Wow.
Germany, I had a school in the Netherlands, a school in Spain, and also a school in Greece. For our schools in Greece and Spain, we were doing medical English, which was not medical English, medical German. We were doing German. We were working in the European Community Project. And my schools in Germany were geared more towards teacher education. And I did that for about 18 years. And it was right before
Wow.
Corona that we decided that we would slowly cut those schools down because, well, we felt that the market was moving more towards online learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very great decision because that decision was made right before Corona. So
So you're lucky then.
we just didn't feel that we needed office space anymore because everything we were doing was online anyway. And I was really, doing a lot of online learning as well. So it was a great decision. I'm glad we made that decision because then Corona came and we realized that if we would have stayed open, we probably would have gone bankrupt.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure that you would have lots of difficult times about it because many had, I think.
Yeah, many schools closed because of Corona. But for us, the decision was a strategical decision. And as I said, I'm glad we made that decision. It was a great
Yeah.
decision.
Thanks, God. You made a great decision. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ron. And you have a huge experience about teaching and learning, of course. And I'm sure that during this experience and years, you have tried lots of methodologies and try strategies and also use them in your lessons or try to transfer this to the other teachers during your during your training. So, and probably you have a kind of a philosophy. So what is it? What is your philosophy of teaching?
Well, I think when you go to school and study education, you learn a lot of theories. But as a young teacher, you got to get in there and just start doing it, because you're not really going to have a highly developed teaching philosophy. It takes a while to develop that, because you've got to
Mm-hmm.
have some experience, classroom experience. And you got to be around other teachers as well, because uh, being around other teachers helps you to learn, as what they're doing. You exchange information. But coming from the corporate world, learning works in a totally different way for adults. And pretty much constructivist approaches to learning is very important for adults. Adults have to have hands-on experience. They need to have tasks. And adults understand what tasks are, because that's what they have every day at work.
Yes.
And they know that they have to be responsible to fulfilling those tasks. So the level of responsibility is already built in to how adults learn in the corporate world. And that really developed, my teaching philosophy as I moved into the academic world. And I have always been a constructivist, take constructivist approaches. And for teachers teaching in academic situations at school, whether that be primary school, secondary school, university, a good example of constructivist approaches would be task-based learning,
Yes.
project-based learning, phenomena-based learning, all the PBLs. I wrote an article about Get Your PBLs Right, which I
Uh-huh.
keep posted on my LinkedIn site as well as my Facebook site, because I have a lot of followers on social media. And it's important to know your methodologies, but if you really want to take constructivist approaches to learning and teaching, you should know the minimum of task-based learning, and know the difference between a task and an activity, because they're not the same, and know all of your PBLs, and you're going in the direction of being constructivist in your classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really kind of influences my teaching philosophy, because I do believe, as I said in the beginning,
Yes.
that learners need to be the creators of content. And through constructivist approaches, that will definitely happen.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the information that you give about your philosophy of teaching. So, if I am not wrong, you are providing kind of a consultancy to the schools or the teachers when they need it. You give them a support, if I'm not wrong.
Well, I
So,
do that on social media every day.
yeah, you do that. And how do you, for example, when they ask you, teachers or schools, when they ask your support, and how do they help them, and what do they need most, and 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 in every time when you help them, and are you successful about it, or sometimes do you fail about it? Can you tell us about it?
There are a lot of things that teachers need to know to be effective in the classroom. And technology is one of them. So the integration of technology into teaching and learning is extremely important. We can just go back to the experience that teachers had worldwide when it comes to when the pandemic started. We could see that many teachers were not prepared
Mm-hmm.
for the pandemic, because they had no experience with online learning and with technology. And another discovery that teachers, that was one of those rude awakenings, and that teaching online is not the same thing as teaching in the classroom face to face.
Exactly.
This requires a totally different kind of pedagogical approach. So technology is one thing that teachers need to have, and knowing the difference between face-to-face learning and online learning, and the different pedagogical approaches that they need, which leads to, again, them understanding frameworks. So TPAC is a framework that I think many teachers need to be familiarized with, and knowing that that's really one of the things that I think is very important. If you don't know what TPAC is, you can Google that. I don't think we have enough
Right.
time to get into the details of that. But another thing, involved in TPAC, technology is one of them, but pedagogical approaches and content knowledge. A lot of people who teach online, who work for language schools, they don't sometimes have an educational background, or they don't have a university degree. They didn't study to be a teacher. So they got to learn all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I do help private language schools. I have before, but they're not my main clients. It's mostly universities. I work with a lot of professors, PhD students
Wow.
who are, doing their PhDs. They have to learn how to research. They have to speak English. They have to learn a lot of different skills. And the professors that I work with, that's why I have my job at the university that I work at, is I'm involved in an EMI program, which is English as a medium of
Medium.
instruction.
Mm-hmm.
I work with specialists, experts who are physicists, scientists, and mathematicians, and very complicated science
Yeah.
topics. So I can't really tell them about their content, but how they deliver that, the pedagogical approaches that they need to effectively, do that in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
instead of lectures, and the different, methodologies that they can use online, learning how to use learning management systems, technology, like I said, and also English, because they want to improve their English. Now, at the university I work at, we have a language department. I don't work in the language department, and I do not work with any professor who has not reached a very high B1 level, entry B2 level. They've got to get the basics of language behind them, so that we can work together in a one-to-one coaching sessions to help them to improve their English, because they want to deliver their classes in English, and I help them with methodology as well too. That's
I understand. I see. Thank you. Thank you very much for the support that you give to the teachers or the schools or the companies.
I do workshops that for teachers organizations, and travel to all around the world doing that.
Yeah.
I've been to over 40 countries all over the world doing workshops
Wow.
and for at different conferences, different teachers organizations. And that's very interesting, because it was like a ticket to travel around the world. Met a lot of people. I know a lot of people in the EFL world. And that was interesting. But the difference being that when you go to a conference, there's maybe at the big conferences like TESOL or IELTS, where there'll be 2,500, maybe 3,000 people. Everybody comes with a different learning context, learning environment. They're teaching primary school,
Exactly.
secondary school. So it's very hard to take something, I try to be very general in nature when I'm working with teachers and teachers organizations, because of the different contexts that they work in. But when I work for a particular university, like the one I work for here in Germany, and I work for several in Germany, that I understand their context. I understand what their problems are. And I do speak German, so we could, solve a lot of problems. But I can't help everybody. You can't help everybody. And while I do have a lot of people who follow me, loyal followers, I think that they're discerning enough to know that, that what I'm talking about are some things they can apply in their classroom, and some of the things they won't be able to apply into their classroom because of their learning teaching context, and also the culture as well too, because
Of course.
a lot of different things don't work in other cultures. Constructivist teaching is one thing that when you come from a culture where the teacher is the king or the queen and knows everything and everything is teacher centered, it's very hard to work with students in a constructivist way when they've never been allowed to make decisions for themselves. They don't know how to direct their own learning. They're always looking for instruction and being told what to do. And then all of a sudden you walk into the room and you let them make decisions for themselves. That's a culture shock for them.
Yes,
So it takes a while for them to accept that kind of teaching and learning.
I understand. It's really sometimes really hard for them to adopt it. I understand.
Well, it's hard for the teachers and it's hard for the students.
The both, exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ron. Let's move to another question. I would like to ask you, I'm sure that you have, as I mentioned before, that you have a huge experience and also you have lots of stories. I'm sure that you have success stories too. So is it possible to tell us one or two success stories of yours, something inspirational, if you have, or would like to share?
Well, I think, I'm 65 years old, and I have to say I've been very blessed in my career, but I've worked very hard. And I'm one of those people who just threw themselves into work because I like what I do. And I've learned a lot, in my journey as being a teacher. So we've had, I think all of us could tell stories of success, but we probably have more stories of failure than we do of success, because that's the reality of teaching.
I see.
We learning by doing. But, yes, there are a lot of things that I can say I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a risk taker, and just leaving the United States, leaving my friends, leaving my family, leaving my culture, and moving to another country permanently was a big move in my life. But I did it when I was young, and I still had a lot of energy. I'm glad I did that when I was younger, because it was a great move, a very, very great move. And I'm very proud of that. That I had enough nerve to do it. And I think the other thing that I could say that I'm also very proud of in my career is the fact that I just took the risk of opening up a business and not knowing what was going to come. I had, a lot of ideas of how I wanted to do things, and I just did it. And every day was a learning experience for me. And the first 2 years were very difficult, but I had a full-time job, so I didn't, I always kept my full-time job. And once the school became successful and we started to grow and started to learn a lot about business, and I studied business. I have an MBA in International Business Administration, and so all of those things I learned were theory, but when you have your own business, you start to see the things from, firsthand. So I learned a lot there. I'm glad I survived that. And, I could probably write a book about that. So owning a business in education is fun. But I was glad when I closed my schools, and I'm glad now for where I'm at now in my life. My life is a little bit easier, not so stressful. And I can enjoy all the things that I've worked for in my life, like my garden.
I understand. Thank you very much, Ron. And I would like to ask you another question, something related with the educational. As we all know that the artificial intelligence is getting really bigger and bigger and takes, the huge part in our, the daily life, especially the social media, and also I think it's moving to every part of the jobs, and also it's also in the education. And what do you think? What do you think about the AI and the language education? What's going to happen with it?
Well, those are several questions, okay, but let me just start by saying that everybody seems to, have their all in an uproar about AI, but AI is not new. it's been around for a long time.
Yes.
If you use Google, that's AI. And so we've been using AI, and AI is integrated into everything that we do. Now, I have been using AI for many different reasons, worked on many different projects. Teacher training is not new for me. I've been doing that for close to 30 years. And one of the biggest problems I had there in teacher training was teaching teachers how to use technology in the classroom. And without even thinking that it was really AI as well too. But AI as we know it today, a lot of people relate that to ChatGPT. And I think it's just exploded in the last year, that we have gotten past ChatGPT, because there are many different chat boxes that we can go to. So we have different alternatives now for AI. We don't just need ChatGPT, we can use many others. And I think that teachers do need to get on board, just like they needed to get on board with technology integration into the classroom, that they needed to get on board with online learning, and situations developed that we realize that we did need those skills. And I believe that in about the next 2 to 5 years, closer more to 2 years than 5, that if a teacher doesn't know how to integrate artificial intelligence into how they plan, how they put lessons together, that they might not be able to get a good job. They'll probably be able to get a lower paying job, but I think companies in the corporate world really need instructors, trainers, and some teachers who really are up to date with their AI skills. So it's not a game. It's, again, not a warning, not something to instill fear into teachers, because there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just another skill that you have to add to your skill set to be an effective teacher. So they should be getting on board. And if any of the teachers here today follow me on social media, they'll see that I always post a lot of information about AI and different sites to go to learn more about it. And of course, I'll be doing a series of webinars about AI and lesson planning and instructional design, and how all those things really fit together. I'll be doing actually a workshop this coming weekend for the German Association of Community Colleges. They're having their annual conference. And so, yeah, I think it's just a skill that you just have to add to all the other skills that we need to effectively teach in the classroom.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ron. So I wanted to ask you another question. It's not something about AI, but definitely it's kind of the term instructional design. So this is really, actually, I have no idea about it. So what is it? What is the instructional design, and what is the role of in education?
Well, as I said earlier, I came from a corporate background, and in the corporate world of learning, in adult learning, we use the term instructional design. That is not new. It's not a new term. When you're a trainer and you're working with adults in a corporate learning environment, you do need to know how to put a course or a workshop together. And that means that you've got to have some skills that you bring to the table, and you've got to be very organized. You have to know how to organize a workshop or a course at a company, and that means that you have to know how to do a needs analysis, and you've got to know what knowledge and skills those people at that company need, and you've got to develop skills or you got to develop tasks and projects around those so that they can learn, because adults need on-hand learning and they need tasks in order to learn something, and they don't have a lot of time. And you also have to know what skills and competencies they, as participants, need to bring to the table to learn effectively, as well as getting a sense of learning successfully. So this is, this is important, and this is what instructional designers do. They know that, and they also know that the learners are there to fulfill a need, a gap that they have, and that they need this to go further in their career. So it's very connected to their work, and they understand how people learn, adults. And we sometimes as teachers use terms interchangeably that is actually wrong, like pedagogy. And we don't realize that pedagogy really is about how young people learn, primary school, secondary school, maybe even university. But people and companies and adults, we use, that's andragogy. And that's different principles ideas of teaching and learning. So how we teach adults might not work for how we need to teach young people. This is why I never talk about young learners, primary school, because I don't know anything about that. But I do know about secondary school, that I do know. And that's very different. Because what happens in a primary school is different than what happens in a secondary school. And what happens at a university is also different. But instructional design I don't want to say it's a science, it's just but you can get a degree in it. You can go to school and learn it. But I don't think you really have to these days. There's so many great things on LinkedIn and social media, Google. There's online courses that you can take. I think it's better if you specialize in something, in whatever that you want to, do an instructional design course in, because, before you, like I said, and you still can study it at university. Again, you don't have to, but I did study that. I wanted to learn more about that. And I did that in my mid-20s because it was part of my job. Now, teachers working in state schools and language schools, private language schools, they probably know a little bit about instructional design because they're doing lesson planning. But so lesson planning is the beginning of instructional design. But now with AI, you need to know what instructional design is, because you need to be able to put together a 360-degree lesson plan. And that's different than just these lesson plans that you can find online, which are cookie cut, and you just, you're going to have to tailor them to your need and change them. And again, this is something that I haven't really talked too much about, but I will be talking about that in the next couple of months, is what is the 360-degree lesson plan, because instructional designers know what that is. They have to know what that is. So again, instructional design is a skill, it's a job, and it's a job like for adult learners, but you can use it for primary school, secondary school, university.
I understand.
But it's mostly about the corporate world, but teachers need to start learning how do they teach and learn in the corporate world, because this is what we're preparing our learners for, especially at university, is to enter the corporate world. And of course, that leads us to another topic of the future of learning, future-proofing, many ideas that come with where are our students going to be in 5 years when they leave our classes, at the university. I'm very much into future-proofing and integrating that into what I do in the classroom with my business students, because I do teach business students as well. And I want to make sure that they're learning the skills that they need to survive and to work effectively and have success in their careers. And I take a very instructional design approach when I put those classes together.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much for the information that you provide us here about instructional design. Thank you very much. And also, if I'm not wrong, we can find more information in your LinkedIn page, I think, about instructional design. Am I right?
Well, you could go to I'm not going to say that I'm a specialist in that, but I know what it is. But if you really want to go and learn more about that, go to YouTube and Google instructional design, and you're probably going to come up with the name Devlin Peck. And he has some of the best videos on learning about what instructional design is and all the different steps of it. And if you take the time, if you're a self-directed, self-regulated learner, and that's who I cater to on social media, is that you will listen to those videos and learn so much. He'll answer all your questions. Devlin Peck on YouTube is the best teacher for instructional design, and they're free.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Wonderful. So after the sessions, I'll definitely go and check because I really wonder what is it. Thank you very much for the information about it. And you just mentioned a term, like I was going to ask you, but you mentioned it's self-directed learning, you said. And it's also another very important term. So can you tell us about it? What is that? What is self-directed learning? And yes.
Well, let me give you a little sort of maybe an analogy, and that is that when a teacher walks into the room, and no matter if they're going to be teacher-centered or student-centered, but it should be the goal of a teacher to make sure that their learners have a little bit of voice and choice in what takes place in the classroom. So, self-directed learning is, we might not see it, but there are a lot, not everybody learns the same.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people who are highly motivated, and they don't need people to tell them what to do. They just know that intuitively. They're just instinctive with that. And we can see that as teachers in state schools and maybe even language schools, the people who are self-motivated and always do the homework, always do the task, they're always there. They're just motivated. We don't have to motivate them. But, self-directed person empowers themselves. They want to learn. They like learning, and they have their own strategies of learning, and they make decisions for themselves. They create activities and tasks for themselves to learn, and they go out into Google, on the internet, and they find resources for themselves to learn. And they like to learn in groups a lot of times. Some self-directed learners learn by themselves. But for them, it's important to learn in groups, so they'll form little study groups or something. And we see that as well in schools. And they're very effective in their learning strategies. They know what works for them. They know what doesn't work. They know what they like. They know what they don't like. And they are very critical sometimes about what they're learning and how they're learning, and they're usually the first ones to give you feedback in the classroom because they know what they want. And it's great to have learners like that, but not everyone is that way. And maybe from what I just said, you might think that a self-directed learner is an extrovert, but not always so. A lot of times they're introverts. A lot of people think that I'm some kind of big whatever extrovert and like speaking and whatever, but I'm actually a very quiet person in my private life. And it takes a lot of energy and nerve for me to get up and speak in front of people, even though I've done it so many times. But I'm a self-directed learner. I've always been. I've always made decisions for myself and found ways for myself. And I always find other people like me who like learning, who are self-motivated. We don't have to motivate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you're a self-direct, and I think teachers dream of having a classroom filled with self-directed learners. But if you really have, if you're lucky enough, and I have in my life, in my career, to have a lot of self-directed learners, I turn those learners into my assistants in the classroom because they want extra tasks. They want something else to do
I
because they
understand.
already
Mm-hmm.
know what's happening. They're really in touch with everything. They have a very high sense of reality, and again, they know what they want, and they're always the one who step forward and you know ask if you need any help or anything. And I always take advantage of that because we're going to have different kinds of learners in our classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and you definitely want to seek out the self-directed learners, and don't think that they're the extroverts, because sometimes the extroverts are not always the
Yes.
self-directed learners.
But it's like it's kind of the great things to have self-directed learners in your classrooms. You became also, when you think about the teacher side, also teachers become motivated, I think, if I'm not wrong. We also become more motivated to see the self-directed learners in the classrooms.
I think we want to believe that maybe it's something we do in the classroom that leads them to self-directed learning. And I think to a certain extent, we can have an influence on that in the classroom because maybe if we're just more student-centered, really clear about our task and the projects that we give students and the responsibilities that we give them, that they begin to understand how learning works and they want to be part of their learning process. So this is important for me, and I try to do that. And I can't say that I have success all the time because we never really know what motivates or demotivates a person, no matter what they
Mm-hmm.
tell us, because we don't know what's going on in their private life. And when you're working with adults, adults don't usually talk about all those things, especially in the corporate world. Uh, and students, you know, there is a social aspect of learning where they do share private things with one another. And this is why collaborative learning is extremely important to keep students motivated. And hopefully, if you know who your highly motivated self-directed learners are, and you make sure that you separate them, you know, correctly in groups when you're doing collaborative learning, you can make self-directed learning contagious, actually, if you know how to work with that. But it takes a while, I think, to understand how that works. And again, it's not something you're going to just learn one day after leaving university. You got to get into the classroom and just start learning what really learning is about and the dynamics of learning. But definitely self-directed learning is one of those phenomena that happens in learning, something that we all wish for, because in the end, I think it's important that we see that our learners are doing things by themselves. They're making good decisions for themselves. And we just have to be just on the side, guiding and managing the
Uh-huh.
process of learning. And when you get to that point, when you know your classroom can manage itself, uh, then you've got a group of self-directed learners.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Ron, for giving lots of information about self-directed learning to us. Thank you very much. And I would like to move to another question. So I know that you have, you have been giving lots of presentations or training sessions in your career so far. So when you think about them, sessions or presentations, especially the face-to-face, what was or were the most interesting situation or situations that you faced?
Well, interesting doesn't always mean something positive.
Okay, maybe like I said that interesting, but if you want to say something vice versa, another problem.
Because I can say something on both sides there. I think it's interesting that a lot of teachers, I have a Facebook site called Webinars for English Teachers, which we have about 35,000 teachers there all over the world who come there, and I always post, free webinars that are taking place and whatever. Now, during Corona, that was really important because a lot of teachers got to get a lot of information that they really needed, to help them get through Corona. And I met a lot of great people from that site all
Uh-huh.
over the world. And I have to say that one of the things that really is something I noticed that maybe I didn't like was that teachers sign up for a webinar and they don't even know how Zoom works. They don't know how to work Microsoft. They don't know how to work Word. They don't know how to work Google. And they don't realize that if you're going to be doing online learning, especially you as a teacher, you have to have those skills. You have to bring those skills to the table. And you don't have to be a master at them, but you should know the basics. And if you don't, well, then that's going to be bad for the person doing the webinar because, they want to do something about maybe AI, and you don't know how to work Google and get to the document and log on and don't even have a Google address or whatever. This makes it so complicated and frustrating. And, I'm going to be quite honest with you. I just throw those people out now
I
because I can't
understand.
deal with it anymore. I just get impatient with it. Uh, and on the good side, there's so many teachers out there that this is the one thing that makes me feel that I really do feel I'm filling a niche in the market. I feel very uncomfortable asking for money and making people pay for things. And I know that everybody, uh, there's parts of Africa, North Africa, the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia, South America, Central America. Any of the teachers that follow me come from these countries, these geographical areas of the world.
Hmm.
And, they don't have money to pay for all these expensive webinars. And I believe that if you're a teacher and you really like your job, you see it as a career for yourself, that you're going to take the opportunity that's offered to you from some of the websites that I run. And I make sure that I really run a clean ship. I don't let a lot of spam on there. I check what's, really on
Uh-huh.
those sites. You will see that even on my social media sites, me personally, I don't put private things there, politics, pictures of, memes that are crazy or whatever, of cats and squirrels and dogs or whatever. It's just really focused about education,
Exactly.
pedagogical
Hmm.
things, technology, AI, and free webinars where you can learn. Because I do believe that if you want to be an effective teacher in the classroom, money is not a barrier. There are so many things out there that are for free. Take advantage of those things. And I
Exactly.
know I have. And
Hmm.
I just want to make sure that teachers know that you don't need to have a lot of money to learn and to get better and be a better teacher in the classroom and to learn how to improve your TPAC and even your content knowledge. I think teachers who are teaching, grammar syllabus oriented classes, well, they definitely are going to have a problem because uh, this morning I Googled English online grammar and got, I think, 250 million results.
Wow.
Why would somebody pay a teacher to teach them grammar when they can get it for free on Google, on the internet, and or go to YouTube. Now, I know there's a lot of influencers out there who are making money from that, but usually they're making money not because they're selling the class. It's because they have some great grammar lessons that are free, and they just make money from the advertising. But they're not charging anything.
You are right. I totally agree. And Ron, there's a question from the followers. Can I ask it?
Sure.
I will divert into the screen. Burak is asking, how do you blend culture and real-life context into language teaching?
Well, I'm going to have to turn that question around and is how do you not deal with culture and you're doing language teaching?
Sure.
Because language is about culture. And if you're teaching English, this becomes more difficult because it doesn't make a difference if you're doing Arabic or Spanish or German. You know, German is not only spoken in Germany. German is the most widely spoken language in Europe, on the continent. English is, so there is German as lingua franca, there's English as lingua franca, Spanish. Look how many countries Spanish is spoken in. Yeah? There's so many.
Yes.
And if you look at Spanish, I'd like to start with Spanish. Not everyone who speaks Spanish shares the same culture. Not everyone who speaks Arabic shares the same culture. And not everyone who speaks English shares the same culture. So you do need to understand, you know, cultural aspects of language. And learning a new language is definitely going to open your eyes to how other cultures work, how people see themselves. So you can't separate the two. You can try to do that, but I think it makes for a very dry learning experience because culture is a very integral part of language learning. And teachers make that decision for themselves whether they're going to teach British English. And I always think that that's sort of strange because if you're going to teach British English, have you lived in the country? What do you know about the culture? Is it just theoretical? Do you know only, you know, and if you're like me, I'm an American, I think I'm always shocked at how many people have these ideas of the United States, but it's all from Hollywood movies. It's not reality. When they start to realize what it is, they're sort of shocked in a lot of ways. You know, I've traveled throughout the, you know, North Africa, in the Middle East, and I know that there's a big difference between, you know, Morocco and Egypt, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. You know, these are different cultures, and a lot of them, you know, and then there's different dialects of Arabic. So you gotta know about culture, and you should always teach about culture, and not just the differences that we have, but the similarities that we have as well too. I think that's important.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer. Let's move to another question, Ron. So, Ron, how do you see yourself in 10 years? Will you still be doing this job, or are you going to try another jobs?
Well, I just noticed that there's somebody there, and her name is Grace.
Yes.
I noticed that she pinned something, and Grace lives in Mexico. She's from Argentina. And, you know, I lived and worked in Mexico, and I have a home in the United States. I have a home in Spain. I have a home in Germany as well. So I hope that if everything goes to plan, I will definitely just enjoy my retirement and travel to my different homes, and definitely make sure that I get a house as well, a little apartment in Mexico, because I like traveling. It's just part of what I like to do. And I'm going to probably retire in a few years, but I don't think I'm going to quit teaching. I think
Hmm.
that's in somebody's blood after a while. So I like that. Yeah. But I know I'll probably do, webinars still. But Germany's cold, and I don't like the winters here. So this is why, I like our house in Spain. And it's getting my house in the United States is in Texas. It's very hot there. So I don't think I'm going to retire there. Uh, but definitely would travel. So I think maybe even in 5 years, I'm just going to enjoy my retirement.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's also another comment there from
And
Anthony.
I
Yeah,
say Antoine, yeah. I know him. He
Antonia.
lives in
Sorry.
France. Hmm.
Hmm. He also says really thank you. He says thank you to you and for the things that you have taught him. It's really wonderful to see these comments here. And let me ask you another question, Ron. It's like, sometimes people would like to have in some difficult situations, oh, I wish I could have that superpower and to deal with this problem. People say this. So when you think about yourself, if you could have one superpower to use
As a
in the classroom
teacher,
as a teacher, what would it be and how would it help you?
well, I think I wish I could have the superpower of mind reading.
Oh, oh.
Uh, that I could really read the minds of my learners and understand them. Not because I want to know everything about them, but definitely would like to know what's in their minds. What do they want? Because our learners don't always express what they really want. And all the years that I've had in experience in the classroom, what they say to you might not actually be what they really want. And I think if you had the superpower of mind reading, that you don't need to do a needs analysis. You can just start doing what they want, yeah, what they need. Learners don't always know what they need. They'll tell you what they want, but what they want is not always what they need. And also just getting into the minds of people to understand how they learn, what really is important to get them motivated into the learning process. I think it's a lot easier with adults. I think anyone who's a primary school teacher, and I don't think that we as other teachers recognize the very difficult job that they have because they're doing more than just teaching. They're socializing young people, and their job is totally different than what we do in secondary school and
Mhm.
at university or in the corporate world. So it's important to, like I said, we're talking about superpowers here. I definitely would like to be able to read the mind of my learners.
So, okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your superpower to tell us. Okay, and by the way, just two questions left. The time flies, Ron. It's really, really, the wonderful moment we are having here, thanks to you. And let me ask you the first question before the last one. And let's finish this interview, and you step outside the home and find a lottery ticket, ends up with the $10 million. What would you do?
Well, first of all, 10 million is not very much money. I think money's relative.
Ah, you're
So
right.
it's not a lot of money, okay? But I probably would give half of it away.
Mhm.
Uh, you just don't need that much money. You just, what, I already planted my trees and already have my car and have my house. And so, I mean, it's not as if I need to buy any new furniture or anything. Nothing like that. Oh, I probably would get a personal trainer. And a nutritionist and a cook to cook for me in my retirement. But I know probably I would probably give half of it away. And I sort of know where I would give it away to, but it would all be to people who, I mean, one thing I learned during Corona is I didn't realize, everybody thinks Germany's a very rich country, and it is. It's the economic powerhouse of Europe. But there are still a lot of people here in Germany who don't have access to the internet,
Wow.
who don't have a laptop, who don't have an iPhone. Here we are talking on an iPhone. I'm talking to you, from my iPhone. But Corona made me open my eyes to that. And I worked on a project to make sure that we could get as many laptops to as many teenagers as possible to make sure they had the same chances to learn as everybody else.
I see.
And that was really an eye-opening experience for me. So I think that we should not forget that, that no matter where we live at, there's going to be people who need to have access to the internet, need the equipment, and we need to do what we can to help them. And not in the sense that I pity them, but because I want to give to people what was given to me. I like to give back what was given to me. And I've met a lot of great people in my life who've been great mentors, great teachers, and they gave a lot to me. And when I'm in the classroom, I try to remember them. And I just know that one of my mentors, I don't think she ever let me pay for lunch. She always paid out of her own money. So sort of it would be like giving back. So if I won the 10 million, yes, I would probably give half of it away.
I got it. Okay, thank you. And here is the last question, and I think the really difficult one. And what is your motto?
Well, if you follow me on social media, you probably should already know the answer to that question. But I keep it on LinkedIn, and I believe that when you are grown up and act like a grown up, okay, that you've got to be critical about things. You've got to scrutinize things. You've got to break things down and ask questions and not just accept everything that's thrown at you, and that you've got to make decisions for your own self-development and personal growth. And this is why I have on my LinkedIn side, learning for the discerning. Because we need to be more discerning about what we learn and what we need to learn and make good decisions in that way. And that's my motto, is learning for the discerning. I've made some mistakes in decisions that I've made for myself about learning, but I think I've made more good decisions than bad decisions. I think the bad decisions were just based on I made them in the last minute and really didn't think about it. And the ones that I really think about, I do it. I do it.
I got it.
So I consider myself a discerning person, and I think we as teachers need to be discerning about our learning. That's my motto, learning for the discerning.
Discerning, I see. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's all my questions, Ron. And before ending our live sessions, would you like to add anything else?
Well, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. And I don't know how many people are here, but definitely it was nice to see a lot of the names that I know. And so hello to all of you. And for those who don't know me, follow me on social media. There's a lot of great things out there. Webinars for English teachers on Facebook. On my personal site from Ron Morrain, I post things daily about teaching, technology, pedagogical things, didactical things. It's all free, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's just there because I like to share with my colleagues. And I also share those things on LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn too. And thank you, Volkan, for letting me have this opportunity to promote that, not myself, but the sites themselves, because I think teachers can benefit from those.
Definitely. And before ending, I would like to say one more time, thank you very much and for being with us tonight, Ron. That was really wonderful. And thank you very much for your suggestions, for advice, and especially the most important thing is your time. You spend your time here with us. That was marvelous and very meaningful for us. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Ron Morrain was with us tonight, and we had a joyful session with him. And we are going to be here next week on the same day at the same time, as you know that on every Monday at 9 p.m. Turkey's time. So until the next time, take care of yourselves and take care of yourself, Ron. Really, thank you very much one more time for this wonderful session. We are going to be here, and until the next time, take care of yourselves and peace, everybody. And bye bye, Ron. Thank you.